Under the shadow of pre-dawn skies, Lucius, a seasoned soldier of Carthaginian allegiance, stood among the ranks, feeling the crisp alpine air pricking his skin. It was the year 218 BC, and the world as he knew it was on a precipice of change. Lucius was a part of Hannibal Barca's daring army, an army that sought to achieve the impossible, a march over the towering and treacherous Alps to reach the heart of Rome itself. Lucius had always been a man driven by the tides of fortune and fate. From his youthful days of reckless abandon on the streets of Carthage, his life had been a string of chance events, leading him to the formidable ranks of Hannibal's forces. In that cold morning light, even his seasoned soul harbored a twinge of trepidation at the thought of awaiting trials. For many nights, Lucius had listened to the whispers of their leader's bold ambition. Hannibal, with his penetrating gaze and undeniable presence, filled every corner of the camp with a fervor that was both inspiring and daunting. Lucius, like many others, found himself captivated by the man's unyielding spirit, each word and command resonating with a tangible conviction. Drums began to beat a slow, rhythmic pulse through the valley, urging the men to shoulder their burdens and press forward. Lucius tightened his grip on his spear, his companion through countless skirmishes as they began their ascent. Veterans grumbled lightly about the snow and the rugged paths. Younger soldiers exchanged quiet murmurs of excitement mingled with fear. Alongside them, elephants, the magnificent, mighty beasts from Africa, bellowed plaintively, their voices echoing like ancient callings through the glacier winds. The ascent, Lucius soon realized, demanded more than physical strength. It called for a resilience of spirit. The path was narrow and dangerous, constantly threatening to claim the unwary, with its precipitous cliffs and hidden traps of ice and snow. As the soldiers carefully plotted each step, they reflected upon their fates, for each was acutely aware of their bearings on a stage that was larger than any they had imagined. One evening, while the army halted to rest at the base of a sheer, resolute cliff, Lucius found himself gazing up at the stars. They glittered frostily above, indifferent to the turmoil and conquests of men. In those moments, Lucius realized their journey was not just a martial maneuver, but a weave in the grand tapestry of history, a story for the ages. As embers of campfires flickered a subdued glow against the stark, snowy canvas, Lucius closed his eyes, drifting into a restless sleep. His dreams were vivid, of swaying grasslands echoing with hoofbeats, the clash of swords, and the rallying call of an empire on the march. In the depth of his slumber, the spirit of Carthage sang to him, soothing his apprehensions, binding him tighter to the cause that was greater than any single man. With the dawn, they would rise to climb further, to meet whatever lay beyond the mountains, destiny and the world of ancient Rome. And so Lucius dreamt on, cloaked in the resolve of Hannibal's vision, a single soldier among thousands, marching steadfastly into the annals of time. The morning air hung heavy with the tense anticipation of the unknown as Lucius rose with the light of the sun's first rays peeking over the jagged alpine peaks. The ground was frozen beneath him, and his breath formed clouds in the frigid air as he gathered his gear, prepared to continue the arduous journey over the mountains. The atmosphere among the soldiers and their beasts was charged with the collective will to surmount the seemingly insurmountable. The path ahead was another test of the army's resilience. As the day wore on, the terrain grew even more unforgiving. Deep chasms and narrow passages frequently blocked their path, forcing them to find precarious routes around nature's obstacles. The snow under their feet during the days filled with sunlight began to melt only to freeze again at night, creating hidden threats of ice slicks that made gaining even a few meters a tremendous effort. Lucius and his fellow soldiers moved with careful precision, carrying on their backs the weight of Carthage's hope, inching their way higher and deeper into the Alps. His thoughts sometimes drifted to the warm stone of Carthage, far from these cold cliffs. Yet the sounds of myriad voices, the clang of weapons, the trumpet blast of elephants, pulled his focus back to the here and now, to that crucial moment in history. One particularly treacherous day saw a portion of their path obliterated by a landslide. The soldiers were forced to halt, and a murmur of unease rippled through the ranks. Hannibal, with his commanding presence, stepped forward to assess the situation, quickly issuing orders to clear a new path. Lucius recalled how Hannibal took inspiration from the mountain goats they had seen, scaling steep faces, nimbly finding new ways over the delicate edges. Under the guidance of their leader, the task began. Axes rang out against the rock, carving and chiseling a way forward. Lucius, like his comrades, worked tirelessly, hammering and hauling debris, driven by a shared determination. It was a brutal undertaking, their muscles burning from exertion and the biting cold finding every chink in their armor. During these pauses, Lucius often watched the elephants, majestic despite the difficulties they faced. While they had lost a few of these colossal creatures to the elements, those remaining carried their task with solemn dignity, their trumpeting calls rebounding off the mountainsides with an invigorating resonance that lifted the weary spirits of the men. As the path cleared and their advance continued, there was little time for rest. Yet, within their grueling nobility of purpose, Lucius felt an unwavering connection, a bond forged in adversity, each soldier a link in a formidable chain, each step placing Carthage closer to confronting their Roman adversaries. Nights were spent huddled around fires, warm meals a reminiscence to home, where conversations veered from strategies to reminders of loved ones waiting far away. For Lucius, these moments were crucial pauses, time to rekindle the fierce spirit that burned beneath their wearied exteriors. As they pushed onward, finally descending the steep cliffs towards the Italian plains, Lucius could feel the shift in the air. The scent of damp earth reached him, heralding a transition from mountain to flatland. He was part of an army that had achieved the unthinkable, traversing the Alps, a feat that would echo through time, setting the stage for a confrontation that would shape the ancient world. In that silent victory of reaching the valleys below, Lucius realized this march was not merely about war. It was also about outlasting the barriers that nature or man might place in their path. His heart soared with hope, firm in the knowledge that they stood on the brink of history. And so onward they would press, each step now filled with renewed purpose, ever forward towards their fate in Rome. The tranquil plains of northern Italy stretched before Lucius's gaze as he and his comrades descended from the brutal grasp of the alpine terrain. A soft, welcoming breeze brushed against his weary face, carrying with it the sense of a land ripe for conquest. As the pressures of the mountain journey began to ebb away, the ever-present hum of battle readiness remained, woven tightly into the camaraderie that had grown among the men. With the army regrouping on the flat, lush landscape below, Hannibal convened his commanders to strategize. They had broken through what many deemed an impenetrable barrier, but now lay ahead the formidable armies of Rome, surely bracing for a confrontation of their own. Lucius, though too junior to partake directly in such councils, was heartened by the whispers that reached the ranks. There was confidence and expectation. It was time for battle. The army pressed on in great strides, buoyed by their recent triumph and spurred by the prospect of confronting Rome on its own soil. Lucius felt pride swelling within as they moved southward, aware that their march thus far was an achievement worthy of tales yet untold. Alongside the mass of soldiers, the elephants strode with renewed vigor, their massive feet leaving deep, purposeful prints in the fertile ground, reminders of their extraordinary journey. Days later, their first sighting of the enemy came as they approached the banks of the river Trebia. Rumour had it that a Roman force, commanded by Consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus, awaited them, eager to expel the bold invaders and conjure a show of Roman strength. Anticipation rippled through the camp, nerves steeled and weapons readied as they braced for the inevitable confrontation. On an overcast morning, as tendrils of mist rose from the Trebia's flowing waters, the tension broke. Harsh Roman war cries mingled with the clatter of weapons, blaring a defiant challenge across the river. Lucius stood among his comrades on the opposite bank, the earth beneath him trembling with the impending clash. In a deft maneuver, Hannibal exploited the natural landscape and the strategic patience that had become his hallmark. Under the veil of fog and early light, part of the Carthaginian cavalry crossed the river to lure the Romans into a trap. Lucius and the infantry held their breath, watching the sequence of events unfold with the precision of a masterful game. As the Roman forces surged forward, goaded by the ruse, Hannibal's hidden troops emerged from their concealing positions, descending like a hawk upon prey. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Cries of conflict soared to the heavens, and the brutal dance of war unfolded before Lucius. He was plunged into the midst of the fray, the familiar heft of his spear in his hand, each thrust and parry a testament to his resolve to survive. The clash surged and waned. The mighty Carthaginian elephants, like living battering rams, charged the Roman lines, their presence both majestic and terrifying. Their trumpeting cries rose triumphantly over the tumult, rallying Carthaginian spirits as they pushed against the legions. Despite the intensity of combat, Lucius's resolve held firm. He fought with a fervor nurtured through hardship and triumph. The Romans, though valiant and numerous, found themselves outflanked and overwhelmed, their retreat inevitable. As the dust of battle settled, the significance of the victory at Trebia began to resonate. Lucius stood amidst the aftermath, breathless and bloodied, conscious of having been a part of a pivotal moment. Word carried quickly through the ranks of their triumph, and a newfound confidence gripped their hearts. They had struck a formidable blow against the mighty Republic and carved a path deeper into fate's design. Buoyed by triumph, the army regrouped, ready to carry forward the momentum of their victory. Lucius knew that greater challenges lay ahead, yet within each soldier burned the fire of defiance. They were not mere invaders. They were harbingers of a Carthaginian resurgence, determined to see Hannibal's vision realized under the sky of an eternally remembered Rome. In the aftermath of victory at Trebia, a subtle tension lingered in the air. The triumph was undeniable, and yet Lucius sensed in the steady preparations that Hannibal understood well the nature of war. Today's success was merely a foothold on a far more treacherous path. As winter's cloak settled over the land, the army set itself to wait, fortifying their resolve amidst the cold grip of Italic lands. Lucius spent much of his time alongside his fellow soldiers, tending to the mundane tasks that accompanied such a pause between battles. Weapons were sharpened with methodical precision, armor mended, and provisions meticulously portioned to sustain them through the harsh season. Camaraderie flourished, the bonds between men hardened in hardship. During those cold months, word arrived of Rome's internal tumult. Hannibal's campaign had sent ripples through the Republic as uncertainty and discontent festered within its heart. Yet it was still undoubtedly a formidable adversary that lay ahead. As the days inched slowly towards spring, a new energy stirred within the camp. From the whispers and directives came news of their impending advance, the vital opportunity to strike again at the heart of Roman might. Lucius watched as Hannibal held council with his trusted lieutenants, drawing lines and plans upon the frozen earth, forging a vision of what lay ahead. It was then that Hannibal shared his intent. The army would continue into Etruria, aiming to lure the Romans to a place of his choosing for another decisive engagement. The tension charged the air as preparations quickened. The soldiers were to resume their audacious campaign. The army of Carthage moved swiftly and with purpose when the first thaw heralded the approach of spring. Their march southward was defined by both strategy and foresight, avoiding heavily fortified towns that might slow their progress. Along the way, they encountered allies long suppressed under Roman yoke, those eager to shake free and support Hannibal's banner of resistance. Days and nights melted into each other as the march carried them into the vibrant heart of Etruria. Fields of green and gold unfurled like a tapestry of bounty, but Lucius knew well that the beauty belied the fierce encounter imminent upon them. Their leader sought to pit the indomitable courage of men against not just Roman strength, but Roman strategy. Their steps led them eventually to Lake Trasimine's shimmering waters. Here, Hannibal's cunning unfolded. Scouts returned with reports that a Roman army, spearheaded by Consul Gaius Flaminius, shadowed their movement. In the landscape of hills and lakeside, Hannibal saw the perfect snare. Before first light, as mists curled off the lake, the Carthaginians prepared to spring their trap. Hidden among the rolling slopes that flanked the lake's edge, Hannibal's forces lay in wait. Foot soldiers poised, cavalry primed, and the elephants, those great war beasts, steely and silent. Lucius felt his breath quicken, not with fear, but with the adrenaline of anticipation. In nature's theatre, they were ready to take the stage. Unaware Romans marched into the passage bordered by the lake and hills. Carthage struck. Lucius watched with a mix of awe and resolve as chaos erupted along the Roman column. The Roman position unraveled like a tightly wound spool in the clutches of Hannibal's stratagem. Lucius fought fiercely amid the melee, the roar of battle a living entity around him. In the confusion, the precision of Carthaginian movements became evident as they pressed hard, driving panic through Roman ranks. The lake's stillness belied the tumult of splashing escapes and desperate cries that echoed as Flaminius's forces, trapped, found themselves vanquished between water and warrior. The victory was absolute. Lucius, standing atop the peaceful rise now dotted with remnants of conflict, looked over Lake Trasimene, aware of the magnitude of what they had achieved. Carthage had not merely won a battle, they had decimated one of Rome's armies and cemented their place in the annals of military genius. Hannibal's reputation as a tactician surged following Trasimene, the ripples of his victories spreading across the Italian peninsula. And with every victory, Lucius realized they were writing a definitive chapter of courage against dominion, a tale to echo through time's unyielding corridors. The road ahead promised more challenges, but with each battle they stepped deeper into history's embrace. After the resounding triumph at Lake Trasimene, the Carthaginian army, along with Lucius in its ranks, basked briefly in the afterglow of their victory. Yet even as they celebrated, their minds began to stir with thoughts of the future. The weight of their success brought with it new responsibilities and new challenges as the reality of an ever-vigilant Rome loomed large in the distance. Lucius found himself in awe of Hannibal's astute leadership. The general wasted no time resting on his laurels. Instead, he seized the momentum, aware that the Romans, though battered and beleaguered, would respond with characteristic resilience. Rome was already marshalling its considerable resources to prevent further Carthaginian advances. As they moved southward, the countryside through which they traveled bore signs of Roman influence. Yet the morale within the Carthaginian ranks was buoyant. Hannibal's victories had stoked the fires of rebellion among some of Rome's erstwhile allies, further extending their influence. However, the grim realities of the campaign, hunger, exhaustion, and unfamiliar terrain, were unrelenting. The army marched through the fertile lands, foraging when possible, living off the land to sustain their journey deeper into Italian territory. Lucius remained vigilant, acutely aware that war tested a soldier's spirit as much as his strength. Hannibal soon set his sights on a new, audacious strategy. He turned his attention to Cannae, where rich farmlands stretched across the Apulian plain. Their march brought them closer to this critical region, a symbolic and strategic target, sure to provoke the Romans into action. The rumors proved true. Another Roman army gathered, determined to protect Rome's position in the south. Commanded by the consuls Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus, the Romans aimed to confront Hannibal's army in a decisive encounter. The days leading to the engagement were filled with logistical maneuvers. The Carthaginian forces made camp near Cannae, strategically positioning themselves as Hannibal prepared to once again test his mettle against the ingenuity and resilience of Roman power. Tensions ran high, whisperings of impending battle threading through the camp like an electric current. Then came the morning of the awaited confrontation, 216 BC, a day that would find its place in history. The sky was a clear expanse of blue against which the swelling anticipation of battle unfurled. The air buzzed with expectation as lines were drawn and formations took shape. Lucius was positioned with the infantry at the center, amidst men whose skills had been honed by the crucible of past battles. The signal for battle rang out as the armies closed in. Dust rose from the pounding hooves and marching feet, a cloud of history preparing to engulf the plains of Cannae. In a masterful display, Hannibal deployed his troops in a crescent formation, the center softly yielding while the wings held firm. The Romans charged, confident in their superior numbers, driving against the center with formidable force. Lucius stood firm with his compatriots, enduring the pressure, the bellow of war and clashing of arms resonating with a primal urgency. As the Roman forces poured into the trap, the Carthaginian wings swept forward, enveloping and encircling like the closing pages of a dark epic. The ensuing combat became one of the ancient, world's most epoch-defining engagements. Caught in the encircling grasp of Hannibal's genius, the Roman legions were driven into disarray. They found themselves hemmed on all sides, their disciplined ranks dissolved into a maelstrom. Lucius fought amidst the chaos, battling step by step as the Carthaginian forces executed their lethal maneuver. The resonance of victory roared around him, transforming desperation into triumph. As the sun dipped below the horizon, its light casting a golden pall over the battlefield, the magnitude of what they had accomplished crystallized. Cannae was more than a victory. It was a legendary triumph, a testament to the art of war and the indomitable spirit of Hannibal's Carthaginian host. As the exhausted and bloodied army stood victorious, Lucius felt the world shift beneath him, the outcome marking a profound chapter in the chronicles of human warfare. Yet, even amid triumph, Lucius understood that the road ahead promised no certainty. Their path extended further into the landscape of history, and with each step forward, the stakes grew only higher. The legend of Cannae would endure, but the demands of their campaign were unyielding, and Lucius knew they must press on, carrying the legacy of their harvest of victory into the heart of Rome. The aftermath of Cannae was a maelstrom of contemplation and reality. Despite the resounding victory, Lucius, along with the rest of Hannibal's army, understood that their greatest challenge lay not in the battles they had won, but in the uncertain path that lay ahead. Rome, though bloodied, was unbroken. The resilience of the Great Republic was a testament to its deep roots and far-reaching influence. As the enormity of their triumph settled like dust over the battlefield, Hannibal convened with his commanders. Their discussions carried through the camp, reaching the ears of every weary soldier. Decisions now had a greater weight.
With Cannae, they had set in motion a storm that would either extinguish the Republic or force an unyielding empire into submission, a feat that required not only victory, but strategic ingenuity. Lucius felt the weight of the landscape around him, the vast open fields, the endless skyward stretch of Italy, both invigorating and daunting. They had demonstrated that Rome was not invincible, yet in the heart of every soldier rested the understanding that they had crossed a threshold from which there was no retreat. In the weeks that followed, Hannibal relied on his mastery of diplomacy as much as his prowess on the battlefield. Word of their victory spread across the Italian peninsula, kindling revolt among some of Rome's subjugated allies. Cities in Campania and other regions wavered in their allegiance, tempted by the possibility of casting off Roman shackles. However, Lucius was all too aware of the challenges that threatened to undermine even the greatest efforts. The terrain, so unfamiliar and far from Carthaginian shores, posed difficulties in sustaining a prolonged campaign. Moreover, diplomatic overtures failed to significantly sway major allies from throwing in their lot with the Carthaginians, hesitance born from centuries of Rome's dominance. The Roman Senate, though reeling, orchestrated a strategic defensive that could not be underestimated. They forbade large-scale engagements with Hannibal's forces, instead focusing on fortifying cities and preventing him from gaining a stronghold. This cautious yet calculated approach, later known as the Fabian strategy, sought to erode Hannibal's influence through attrition, refusing him the crushing blow that might otherwise have delivered Rome into his hands. Amid this stalemate, Lucius found his resolve and that of his comrades tested by a campaign that transformed from blazing battles to prolonged tension. Their days blended into each other, each dawn a continuation of their calculated watch over Rome's movements. The shadow of doubt sometimes flickered among the troops as they contended with the relentless march of time and the fickle nature of alliances. Yet Hannibal's resolve was unwavering. He navigated these challenges with an unshakable belief in their cause, the heart of Carthage beating with a defiant rhythm. Lucius observed as Hannibal made camp near Capua, leveraging its resources to entrench his forces for the months to come. Their time at Capua offered a reprieve from ceaseless marching and engagement. Here, Lucius and his peers found moments of solace amidst the inhabitants who greeted them with cautious welcome, their hope buoyed by the prospect of freedom from Roman hegemony. As a semblance of routine settled over the Carthaginian camp, Lucius often found himself wandering the outskirts, reflecting on their journey. He marveled at the quiet resilience in his comrades, forged through shared struggle and the will of a leader whose legendary campaign had already shaped the contours of history. Though cannons of doubt echoed across Hannibal's expansive ambitions, Lucius and his fellows were bound by the purpose they carried. The lure of victory sang to them with the promise of glory and the possibility of rewriting the world's order. And so they bided their time, knowing that even the greatest empires start with steady, deliberate steps. The days transformed into weeks and then months, their vigil unrelenting. As Lucius looked to the horizon, he felt the immense weight of history pressing down upon them. The path they traversed would not be determined by the whims of fate, but by their unwavering spirit and Hannibal's undying vision to stand fearless against the Roman heart. Months slipped quietly past, with each passing day a meditation in patience and endurance. As winter relinquished its grip, giving way to the promise of spring in the Italian countryside, the stalemate wore heavily on Lucius and his comrades. The promise of swift victory that had seemed so tangible after Cannae felt increasingly elusive. Hannibal, ever the consummate strategist, was acutely aware that the Carthaginian grip on Italy needed reinforcement. His victories, though significant, were like dramatic strokes across a vast canvas, requiring deeper, sustained support to effect lasting change. This landscape of possibility was treacherous, fraught with the inherent challenges of sustaining an army far from home. Amidst the political maneuvering and delicate task of swaying allegiances, Lucius found solace in the disciplined routine that defined their days. The army remained ever vigilant, maintaining a presence in southern Italy, with watchful eyes towards Rome. This sense of anticipation was a constant hum beneath the veneer of daily life, a reminder that they were still on the precipice of history, waiting for the right moment to once again strike at the Roman heart. However, the bounty of Capua, which had once seemed a welcome haven, began to weave its own form of insidious challenge. The city, with its luxurious opulence and an abundance of comforts, posed an unexpected trap, one of complacency. The allure of its pleasures, the ease of extended rest, threatened to dull the sharp edge of the battle-hardened army. Lucius sensed this shift, observing as some soldiers gave in to the seductive lull of life in Capua, their discipline waning. It was a slow and subtle erosion, as dangerous as any Roman blade. It was understood among the upper echelons of Hannibal's comrades that while they must maintain their position, they could not become tethered to immobility. In response, measures were taken to reignite the Carthaginian fervour. Drills were intensified, forays into surrounding territories increased, and Hannibal rallied his men, reminding them of their purpose. His presence, indomitable and inspiring, was a catalyst, revitalizing their spirits and refocusing their mission. Still, the Roman response continued to evolve. The Roman Senate, under the prudent consideration of Fabius Maximus and his cohorts, pursued the policy of attrition with a steady hand. A more balanced, cautious army was slowly forming, restructuring and reinforcing itself under skilled generals who exercised patience and perseverance over rash confrontation. As the year wore on, Hannibal sought to expand his theatre of operations, hopeful that a decisive blow would spark the wider rebellion he aimed for. Lucius and his unit were dispatched on expeditions farther afield, engaging smaller Roman forces, frustrating their efforts to disrupt Hannibal's influence. These excursions, though minor in the realm of grand battles, presented opportunities for Lucius to witness firsthand the complex web of loyalty and fear that blanketed Italy. In towns and villages, amid the watchful eyes of Rome, seeds of dissent swayed like wheat against the wind, occasional whispers, the guarded exchange of goods. But allegiance to the Roman eagle remained potent, and Hannibal needed more than whispers to turn the tide. The spring gave way to summer, and new plans began to unfurl. Hannibal consolidated his position, aware that the extended campaign stretched the limits of their supplies and manpower. Lucius understood the severity of their logistics as winter approached again. The need to both sustain and protect what they had gained was paramount. Despite the quiet interlude of action, Lucius carried with him the weight of Cannae's memory, a reminder that history was their companion, demanding vigilance with every rising sun. For now, Rome stood firm, a giant unyielding to Hannibal's undeniable prowess. Yet, beneath the surface, something had changed. The shifting sands of power whispered of a possible future where Rome's firmament could still be challenged, and it was this promise that continued to guide the steps of Lucius and his fellow soldiers toward destiny's unfurling canvas. As autumn's rich hues blanketed the Italian landscape, the air around the Carthaginian camp felt charged with anticipation. Despite the passage of time, the promise of Rome's eventual downfall continued to echo in Lucius's heart. The army had endured much, navigating the instabilities of prolonged warfare with grit and determination. Yet, the looming spectre of supply shortages began to tighten its grip, and the strategic patience of Hannibal was being sorely tested. Hannibal remained a masterful leader, undaunted by setbacks. His vision was one of endurance, perseverance through the undulating tides of war, and he knew that to bolster their efforts, they needed a decisive move, one that could reignite the flames of rebellion among Rome's satellite states. In the waning months of 215 BC, an opportunity arose with the promise of alliance. The city of Tarentum had whispered intrigues of defection, a potential boon that could tip the scales against Rome. While the larger region remained largely loyal to the Republic, there existed pockets of discontent among the populace, dissatisfaction simmering quietly beneath the surface. Hannibal, ever the tactician, dispatched envoys to Tarentum seeking to cement this alliance. Though complexities and caution ruled these negotiations, they signified a critical front in the ongoing campaign. Lucius, who was not directly involved, nevertheless felt the ripple of hope amongst the rank and file, a reminder of the strategic breadth Hannibal envisioned. Amid these diplomatic efforts, Hannibal knew his army could not remain static, and he orchestrated further maneuvers designed to disrupt the Roman strategic hold. Skirmishes erupted in the surrounding territories, designed to draw Roman attentions and resources. Lucius participated in these, witnessing the tug-of-war of tactical engagements that painted the land in unpredictability. In one such engagement near Herdonia, Lucius and his comrades faced a Roman contingent tasked with cutting supply lines. It was an intense affair, one that chaotically unfolded in a maze of narrow passes and rugged terrain well known to the Carthaginian scouts. Lucius fought with his usual zeal, acutely aware of the stakes entwined in each clash. Victory was theirs once more, adding to the strategic disruptions Hannibal championed. Even amid successes, Lucius recognized the impossible demands placed upon their leader. They maneuvered through Italy like actors on a stage, the scenes shifting but never concluding in the decisive blow that would bring their campaign to a resounding close. Hannibal's genius lay in exhausting Rome's resolve, in unraveling the bindings of its far-stretched influence, but such sustenance was ephemeral without sustained support. As winter began to unfurl its cold embrace, the broader strategic picture revealed fractures. Despite earnest efforts, Tarentum's full alliance was hindered by internal pressures and Roman influence. Hannibal's armies, though victorious in battle, were stretched thinly across the map, where distance and time dulled the edge of even the most sharpened sword. Lucius joined his brethren around the fires at night, reflecting on the path they had charted together. The stories swapped by firelight focused on survival, on the price paid by soldiers who had dared to defy an empire. To Lucius, they were no longer just warriors. They were witnesses to a theatre of ambition, participants in a dance destined to reshape the world. In his heart, Lucius held the simple truth that they could not relent. With each new sunrise over Italy's diverse canvases, from the shores of Capua to the peaks glimpsed in distant skies, the resolve to carry Hannibal's banner forward burned brightly. The flame of ambition had forges cast in no ordinary crucible, but shaped by history's demand, and Lucius would step bravely onward, determined that the echoing cry of Carthage not fall to silence. Even as challenge beset them, Lucius knew each whisper of potential alliance. Each deft tactical strike carried them forward toward the inevitable reconciliation of hope and reality, a destiny painted not just by the color of conflict, but by the tenacity of their resolute journey against Rome's towering shadow. The chill of winter settled over the Italian peninsula like a shroud, and the landscape bore the muted tones of a season in waiting. For Lucius and the soldiers of Carthage, it was a time of introspection amid the rigor of continued vigilance. While the fires of past victories sparked warmth amidst the cold, the challenges ahead cast long shadows on their journey. By 214 BC,
the shifting dynamics of Hannibal's campaign manifested in both strategic setbacks and cautious optimism. The allure of securing Tarentum had not faded, yet it had become clear that the path to its allegiance was fraught with complication. Hannibal adapted as ever, casting his net wider in search of opportunity and support. He next set his gaze upon Salapia, a settlement whose allegiances, wavering between Rome and Carthage, embodied the overreaching struggle within the Italian theatre. Its strategic value lay not just in resources, but as a potential opening to further unravel the web of Roman alliances. Lucius, now seasoned by years in the field, listened intently as scouts brought news of their allies' dispositions and the strengths of Rome's garrisons. It was a dangerous game of balancing diplomacy with the ever-present readiness for conflict, a game that Hannibal played with unmatched acumen. Amid these tensions, Hannibal orchestrated a daring series of movements designed to destabilize Roman operations in the region. The Carthaginian army took advantage of winter's lull to maneuver silently into positions that would enable them to strike decisively come spring. Lucius and his fellow soldiers, though wary and weathered, moved with a practiced determination, their faith placed squarely in Hannibal's leadership. At dawn, with the first buds of spring heralding a renewal of campaigns, the soldiers assembled in disciplined formations outside Salapia, a testament to their enduring resolve. The plan was one of calculated audacity, utilizing disinformation and strategic feints to lure Roman defenders into an untenable position. The operation unfolded with Hannibal's characteristic deftness, catching the Romans off guard as they attempted to hold their ground against the Carthaginian advance. Lucius fought alongside his comrades, the clash of steel and cries of battle, a familiar composition that filled the air with an urgency born of purpose. Their efforts bore fruit. Salapia, mesmerized by the display of Carthaginian prowess and the mounting pressure of rebellion against Roman oversight, delivered a partial allegiance to Hannibal's forces. Although not the complete victory they sought, it was a testament to the shifting allegiances throughout the region, a spark of possibility amid the greater conflict. Despite these gains, the broader war remained grueling. Reinforcements from Carthage were sparse, constrained by distant fronts and naval engagements. The army had grown adept at drawing support from the territories they marched through, requiring keen diplomacy and a delicate negotiation of local politics. As the seasons turned once more, Rome continued its defensive tactics, seeking to mitigate the Carthaginian threat through the attrition of resources and the steadfast defense of pivotal strongholds. Hannibal countered with relentless innovation, employing guerrilla tactics and exploiting his deep knowledge of the Italian landscape to maintain Carthage's tenuous position. Lucius, reflective in these moments of relative calm, embraced the soldier's role as both witness and participant in this colossal confrontation. Time's unyielding march made immortal the lessons gleaned from each engagement. Every march not just an advance, but a testament to resilience's bloom against adversity's storm. Through it all, the bond among the soldiers strengthened with each trial, underpinned by the shared experience of waging a campaign underfoot of an empire's monumental reach. They were etched, not just in the language of war, but as enduring symbols of Hannibal's audacious vision. The hand drawn against the indomitable sway of Rome, a thread poised on the loom of history's great tapestry. In the quiet that followed Salapia's conquest and the anticipation of future endeavors, Lucius felt the powerful juxtaposition of ephemeral victories and enduring dreams. Though the road ahead bore the promise of struggle, it was the spirit of Carthage, indomitable and enduring, that carried them forward into the annals yet to be written. As the sun rose over the fields of Italy in 213 BC, the Carthaginian army continued its relentless drive, each step a testament to their enduring pursuit of Hannibal's bold vision.
With each passing season, they had learned to survive on the breadth of their endurance and the tactical brilliance of their leader. The embers of hope flickered, fueling their march through the complex battleground of alliances and opposition. The victories they had achieved hung like battle honors above them. However, the challenge of maintaining momentum grew ever more demanding. Rome, with its vast resources, adapted its strategies, and Lucius knew that every skirmish, every encounter was a piece of a larger puzzle, one that often held the fate of their campaign in balance. During these times, Lucius found himself reflecting on their journey, the moments etched into his memory like indelible ink. Among the shifting tides of war, Tarentum still lingered as a prize worthy of pursuit. Its allure continued to tempt Hannibal, offering the crucial gateway to the further support and resources they so desperately needed. Amid refugees, messengers, and scouts, whispers of a burgeoning opportunity reached Hannibal's ears. Within Tarentum, dissatisfaction with Roman rule festered. Covert sympathies for Hannibal's cause and seeds of resistance took root in crevices unseen by Rome's watchful eye. Seizing upon this delicate situation, Hannibal devised an audacious plan. He coordinated a covert night operation intended to infiltrate Tarentum. Carthaginian agents, brave and cunning, were dispatched ahead to pave the way, sowing seeds of revolt within the city's walls. Simultaneously, the encamped army prepared to move with disciplined stealth, ready to strike at the opportune moment. Lucius and his battle-hardened comrades were no strangers to such daring endeavors. Each soldier carried with him the legacy of past victories and the burden of continued expectation. Their hearts embraced the possibility that this could be the pivotal moment they awaited. Under cover of darkness, whispered orders initiated the operation. Lucius moved with his unit, every step calculated, every heartbeat aligned with the night's rhythm. Shadows were their allies, cloaking their approach as the outlines of Tarentum loomed closer, its stone walls silent sentinels against the night sky. Inside the city, Hannibal's agents enacted their carefully laid plans. Through allies and courtyards, their whispers of rebellion crescendoed into coordinated action. Gates were unbarred, Roman patrols confused and disrupted by shifting allegiances. As the signs unfolded, the Carthaginian forces surged forward, scaling the walls with disciplined precision, the symphony of their advance interwoven with the chaos that erupted within. Lucius felt the weight of history in those moments, the palpable tension between fear and triumph. They surged through the city's streets, driving opposition before them, Carthage's banner unfurling against the backdrop of a starlit sky. The overcoming of Tarentum was swift and decisive, a testament to Hannibal's unwavering resolve. As dawn broke over the city, its citizens were awakened to a new reality. Tarentum shifted from a Roman stronghold to a symbol of Carthaginian influence and strategy, a powerful beacon for others who sought liberation from Rome's grasp. Celebration flickered briefly in the days that followed, accompanied by strategic realignments as Hannibal consolidated his new position. For Lucius, the capture of Tarentum was a reaffirmation of faith in their cause and a reminder of the unpredictable tides of war where victory could be both profound and precarious. Yet even amidst triumph, the spectre of Roman retaliation loomed ever near. Rome would undoubtedly respond with vigor, intent on reclaiming its loss and reasserting its dominance in the fractured region. Lucius realized that the campaign, much like the city's capture, involved delicate precision. The balance of victory and vigilance teetered on the knife's edge. For now, the strength of Carthage endured, fortified not only by the gain of territory, but by the unwavering spirit of its soldiers, hearts bound by a shared journey, firmly poised against the relentless will of an empire, marching ever onward toward the promise of a new dawn. The capture of Tarentum reverberated throughout the Italian peninsula, a symbolic victory that invigorated the Carthaginian ranks and sent ripples of concern through the heart of Rome. Yet Lucius understood that their journey was far from over. The path ahead bristled with new challenges, a complex web spun by the ever-adaptable Roman opposition. Hannibal, emboldened by this success, concentrated on solidifying his hold over the region. The capture had yielded not only strategic positioning, but access to desperately needed resources and support. Tarentum, with its harbours and fertile lands, was a jewel in the contested landscape of Italy, offering a newfound base from which to stage further operations. Yet Hannibal was acutely aware of the need to maintain momentum. The Romans, though stunned by the setback, rallied quickly. They marshalled their forces to strike not directly at Tarentum, but at the surrounding allies and territories that were now vulnerable to pressure and persuasion. The Roman Senate, resolved to quash this Carthaginian foothold, turned its formidable resources towards this goal. It was during these tense times that Hannibal decided to send his brother Mago back to Carthage to seek reinforcements. The delicate balance in Italy required more troops than the current campaign could muster, a call to arms for the resources of home. Lucius watched as Mago departed, carrying with him the hopes of an army that knew victory needed the reinforcement of strength from afar. With winter approaching, Hannibal moved quickly. He orchestrated a series of maneuvers designed to further destabilize Roman plans. Lucius found himself in the thick of these strategies, partaking in several engagements aimed at disrupting supply lines and sowing confusion within the Roman ranks. One significant operation took place near the city of Herdonia. Here, the Carthaginians engaged in a feigned retreat, drawing the Roman legions into unfavorable terrain. As the fog of early morning rolled over the battlefield, Lucius and his fellow soldiers lay in ambush, ready to spring the trap that had been so carefully crafted. The clash that followed tested every lesson learned on Italy's battlefields. Hannibal's warriors surged into action, delivering a devastating blow to the Roman forces, cutting them down with coordinated precision. The victory at Herdonia bolstered their position, and the defeated Roman forces retreated, regrouping to plan further resistance. In the aftermath, Lucius sat by the fireside, reflecting on the delicate dance of war. He knew their gains were a masterstroke in Hannibal's expansive vision, yet each victory carried the weight of Rome's inevitable response. The Carthaginian campaign was a tale of deft maneuvering, a chess game played on the vast board of Italy, where every move mattered profoundly. Winter settled across the lands, with its chill bringing a temporary reprieve in the frenetic pace of summer campaigns. As the days grew shorter, Lucius and his comrades focused on fortifying their positions, aware that the coming months would test not only their resolve, but their endurance against the cold and the hunger that accompanied it. In the quiet of those winter nights, Lucius found moments of introspection, his mind wandering through thoughts of home and future. The firelight danced upon faces that bore the scars of battle and the stories of unyielding resistance. Each man was a part of the extraordinary tapestry spun from their collective struggle, woven with courage amidst adversity. The campaign in Italy was far from over, and Lucius knew that the promise of spring would bring with it new battles, new chapters in the saga that was their march toward destiny. Despite the uncertainty, the spirit of Carthage glowed brightly in the hearts of its soldiers, a beacon guiding them through the dark promises of winter, poised for the resurgence that awaited them beyond. As the icy grip of winter released its hold, the first whispers of spring carried with them a renewed sense of urgency and promise. The year 212 BC dawned with an air charged by past victories and the uncertain future. For Lucius and the Carthaginian army, it was a time of transition, where the line between hope and hardship blurred into the rhythm of a relentless campaign. The capture of Tarentum and the victory at Herdonia had been significant milestones, but spring brought with it the knowledge that the Roman forces, though battered, were unyielding. Rome's capacity to absorb setbacks and rebound with determination was legendary, a fact that Hannibal, strategic genius that he was, never underestimated. In the refreshing breath of the new season, Hannibal formulated plans to further capitalize on their successes by seeking to expand Carthage's influence in Italy. The strategy was a multifaceted endeavor, targeting the sinews of Roman support and gaining the allegiance of wavering city-states, a complex dance of diplomacy and military prowess. As the campaign resumed, Lucius and the soldiers embarked on a march toward the city of Capua, a crucial ally that had realigned with Carthage. The city's strategic location and resources were indispensable to sustaining their presence in Italy, providing a veritable bastion for further operations. The Romans, however, had not been idle. Under the command of newly appointed consuls, they mounted a concerted effort to reclaim lost ground and stem Hannibal's advances. One of their targets was Capua, a city whose allegiance with Carthage represented a thorn in Rome's side. Determined to fortify Capua against the growing Roman threat, Hannibal marched into the area with resolve, his mind a tapestry of strategies. Their goal was to defend Capua's splendor while ensuring their enemies' attempts to sever ties between allies remained thwarted. The battle for Capua unfolded amid this tense struggle for control and influence. Lucius, ever at the forefront of these pivotal endeavors, participated in a series of skirmishes that showcased the determination and prowess of Hannibal's forces. The battles were fierce, marked by cunning ambushes and pitched engagements, weaving together the threads of a narrative that would endure through the ages. Despite their efforts, the siege of Capua proved to be a monumental challenge. Rome's iron will was exemplified by the steadily tightening blockade they imposed, intending to starve the city into submission. In a bold move, Hannibal sought to alleviate the pressure on Capua by striking directly at the heart of Rome itself. The mere announcement of such an audacious plan breathed new life into the weary ranks. While it was not intended to capture the city, the strategic feint aimed to draw Roman forces away from Capua and relieve the siege. Lucius could feel the palpable tension as they advanced towards Rome. The declaration was as much psychological as it was tactical, intended to project Carthage's resolve on the vast stage of history. As they approached Rome, the significance of the moment was not lost on Lucius. The sight of Rome's distant walls, imposing and eternal, was a testament to the grave undertaking of their campaign. And although the attack was a feint rather than a full assault, it successfully diverted Roman attentions as expected. Hannibal's gamble worked, drawing forces away and allowing Capua a reprieve, a testament to Carthage's ability to maneuver Rome into a reactionary stance. Yet Lucius understood that such victories were transient in the grand dance between empires. With summer's sun overhead, the army withdrew from the vicinity of Rome, returning to consolidate their gains in southern Italy. Lucius and his companions stood stronger for the trials, their spirits steeled by the realization that their daring had etched them into the annals of legend. Though Rome remained undefeated, the campaign's echoes were destined to resonate through time. Carthage's defiance had carved a legacy of courage and resilience, embodied in the soldiers who dared to dream of toppling the giants that stood before them. As the seasons once again shifted, Lucius embraced the uncertainty of future battles with unwavering resolve. They had not just waged war, they had crafted a tale of indomitable will, a saga to spur the songs and histories told long after their march had ended. With the embers of their journey still warm, and the knowledge that they fought not just for land, but for an enduring legacy, Lucius and his brethren rode onward into the chronicles of history, aware that their story,
like the stars above, would continue to shine through history's vast expanse.